Good morning, Year 9. This is Mr. Walter from Hampstead, and I'm going to be guiding you through this first video of the half term. Hopefully you're well rested, you've had a good Christmas holidays, and you're excited to get back into a bit of history. So, before we kind of talk through what the inquiry in this half term is about, you've got 4 images, 4 different people. You might recognise them, you might not. Who do you think they are? But more importantly, which do you think might be the odd one out and why? Be creative. Think a little bit outside the box. What kind of ideas do you think you can come up with? You might work it out as the lesson goes on. And the first thing I want you to do is in your class teams, post what you think the odd one out is and why. Right, next clue, we've got a source. This is an image from 1900s, very, very early 1900s. What can you see? What's going on in there? Some key things to be thinking about. What are all the different things within this image? There's loads of different pictures. Secondly, what might it suggest about men's views of women? For some of you, why would it be about men's views? And thirdly, using this knowledge, what does it suggest about the position of women in the 19th century? Thinking that through. So if you haven't paused it, I've given you a little break there, but pause it, give yourself 30 seconds, a minute. I want you to write down some of your thoughts. And then I'm going to talk it through with you now. So you've obviously got the writing at the bottom says a woman's mind magnified. You've got a woman's head, and then large section where brain would be, lots of images. Got a hat, got some letters, got chocolate, a ring, a baby, a pet, a dress. So that's all the things in number 1 we can see. Number 2, well, starting to suggest what women are thinking about. This is inside their brain. So this is what their brain is thinking about or contemplating. So you've got their sort of fashion sense, glamour, what they eat, marriage being a very important thing. Writing letters, looking after children. Maybe what's important is what's not in there. Well, there's nothing about job or an education or anything on those sort of lines. And we could be suggesting this because it might not be what we would choose today to think about what was in mind. So it's suggesting this was maybe a view of them at this time that might have come from somebody else, like a man. And finally, 3, well, if men believe that women are these things, but not thinking about education, not thinking about their jobs or employment, not thinking about running a country, voting, then perhaps men think that women are in a slightly inferior position in society. So that would be almost like a lower position or a lower status. And that is a really important idea we need to be thinking about addressing today and this half term. Our key word for the half term is suffrage. And if we look at the top left, that just means the right to vote in elections for the government. Image, actually voting, writing on the slip, are you choosing which government, which person? And if it was in a sentence, for example, suffrage was given to women in 1918. And that is what our inquiry this half term is all about. Was violence the driving force behind women gaining the vote? We'll talk about that a bit more in future lessons, but today we're thinking about why was this important in the first place, and what was women's position? How were they viewed in the 19th century, so the 1800s? First of all, this suddenly became important because of what was going on in the bottom left here, known as the Industrial Revolution. So Industrial Revolution led to more factories, and more a bigger workforce. That meant that some women started to actually work in factories or work in some kind of environment. And also, they started to be educated for the first sort of time. And these things combined meant women now suddenly had a role to play in society, they believed, and wanted, therefore, to have a say or the right to have a say in society. And that's why suffrage and the right to vote becomes a really important debate, an important time in the late 1800s and early 1900s. But today, we're going to focus on some of these sources. So we've looked at this one already. But as we go through each one, I want you to pause the video. I want you to write down all the things that you could say about, number one, what you can see. Number two, what it suggests about men's views of women. And number three, what does it suggest about the position of women? So we can kind of decide and view how they were seen at this point in time, because this will help us answer our inquiry question of why they were able to get the vote. So you need to pause and write down those answers. I'm going to move on. Source 2, same questions. Source 3, same questions. Keep pausing so you have time to write down all these answers and take as long as you need. Source 4, lots of information on here, and lots can be thought about in this way. So we need to really kind of deconstruct each one of those dates. And finally, your final task. I want you to use all of that knowledge gained, all of those sources, to kind of think about, well, what was the view of women in the 19th century? How did men see them? How did they see themselves? Why were they seen in that way? What kind of things would represent that view? And I want you to create your own Mr. Men character, or this time a Mrs. or a Miss Woman character. So you could use these examples from Mr. Men as like a way to start thinking about what you could draw, but actually I want you to be inventive. I want you to go beyond this. And it has to relate to the things you've seen in the earlier sources and images. So could there be something about education in there? Could there be something about work, about pay, about lifestyle, whatever you wanted, but you could draw elements within your image to represent and show that. So the type of hat they're wearing, the type of action they're doing, if they have any props with them, up to you. Most inventive will get points. And I'd like you to post those if you can, or upload those onto Teams. Might be taking a picture of it and uploading it. All of the tasks are here in their order as well, if you need to stop and work out what to do at each one. Not all of them you need to post in Teams, but some of them you definitely do. Can I draw your attention as well to task 5? Towards the end of the lesson, you need to write your exit pass. It must be 1 to 2 sentences, and it must be a comment on the Teams page, perhaps in reply to your teacher's comment. And the question is, what was the view of women in the 19th century? Okay, so 1 to 2 sentences answering that before the end of the lesson. For a few of you, if you want to challenge a more complicated article, but a really interesting article, can be found here. And you could write a little summary of saying what it suggests about women in the 19th century. Good luck. I'm looking forward to seeing all your responses.